Yo, what's going on, guys? I'm Cartere, and in this video I'm going to be explaining Grapple Advantage in EA Sports UFC 2. Now in the background I'm going to have Johnson versus Seudo, I think that's how you pronounce his name, and if this fight should happen to finish while discussing Grapple Advantage, then the next fight is John Jones versus Saint. I'm not 100% sure how to say his name, and I don't want to mess it up, so let's just keep it moving. Now, basically, what I'm going to do is I'm going to read through the notes that EA Sports UFC 2 have on their own website. They've got the dynamic grappling breakdown here. I'm going to read through it, and then I'm also going to let you guys know how it applies to you and try to explain it in a more, I don't know, a more friendly way, I guess that's the way to say it. So first of all, let's start with clinch attempts. And no, should we start with, you guys should know how to get into a clinch and do takedowns and stuff like that, and if you don't, then I've got a video on that, so I'm not gonna get into like the clinch attempts and the grapple assist. Well, actually, you know what, let's get into the grapple assist, because I think that's probably a good thing to get into. The main purpose of the grapple assist HUD is to show you what moves are available to you at any given moment of the fight. The HUD will show you exactly what move you'll perform if you press in any one of the directions, up, down, left or right. Not all four directions are available at any given time, and what moves are available to you can change dynamically based on the context of the fight. Press the left trigger button and you'll see your takedowns or submission options. These can be accessed while you're on the ground on top or from the bottom, or even in the clinch. There's sometimes where you might be able to do a flying submission or something like that. If you press the left bumper, or the L1 button, you can see your advanced transitions, get ups and sweeps. These are, for example, the more advanced Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu transitions and sweeps, and the more advanced wrestling transitions and sweeps. These kind of moves will generally get you into a way more advantageous position, but it usually takes quite long to do an advanced transition. So you really want to do that when you've got Grapple Advantage, and we'll talk about Grapple Advantage as we get through this post. So if you press both, you'll be able to see, well, if you press both L1 and L2, or LB and LT if you use the Xbox One, you'll be able to see your advanced takedowns and submissions. It also says pay attention to this HUD, as it will constantly be changing, not only based on your inputs but also based on what your fighter or your opponent is currently attempting to do. In the case of a takedown attempt from standing, the HUD will already be highlighting the move you are attempting when it first appears. In brackets it says single leg or double leg. As you perform the takedown, you'll notice that the meter begins filling up in the HUD. This is the second big piece of information that the Grapple Assist HUD will give you: how long it takes to perform your, sorry, I said that in the wrong way, how long it takes to perform your selected move. This is basically, you see when the right analog stick is up on the screen and it's got that little circle going around, it's basically giving you an estimate of how long the move is going to take. So when you push it in that direction, or whatever direction you're going in to initiate your transition, it will gradually fill up, and if it fills up very quickly, then it will, it takes less time and whatnot. If you see it filling up really slowly, then you might want to stop going for that and go for a different transition, because it will probably work out better and you'll have less chance to be reversed or someone block your transition. Well, we don't have to talk about the swooping and stuff. That's pretty much, I guess you guys probably know you don't have to swoop. In practice mode, the Grapple Assist HUD can be used to learn your defensive options. In the case of the standing takedown, when you press RT to defend the takedown, you'll see the defend option appear on your HUD. Now, the practice mode is a great place for you guys to get into, to learn how to defend different types of transitions and different types of throws and attempts and submission attempts and stuff like that. Because when you're in the practice mode, when you hold RT, it actually tells you in what direction you need to defend. So if you're playing online and you've had a couple matches and it's really difficult for you to block a transition in a certain position on the ground. Let's say you don't know how to block a transition when you're in side control or something like that. If you go into the practice mode and maybe give your opponent I don't know, give your opponent some ground skills or something, but what I do is I put in 2 pads so I can actually check what direction it is that they're actually transitioning in, so I can learn that animation and be able to apply it in my online fight, so I know what direction I have to block the transition in. So that's a really good tip. You guys should definitely do that. It really helps out. I guess this is all about the meter and stuff. I don't think that's really important, but yeah, the grapple advantage plays a big role in determining the rate at which the meter fills. The meter I'm talking about is the meter that fills up on the screen when you're using the right analog stick in order to attempt a transition or a takedown or anything of that sort. The difference in ratings between the 2 fighters also contributes to the difficulty and the calculation of the move. So if you've got a low ranked fighter and he's got like low takedown skills and your opponent has great takedown defense, then it's going to take way longer for you to take them down than if you were to verse someone with lower takedown defense and you had higher takedown skills. So I hope that makes sense. But yeah, now they get into grapple advantage. Grapple advantage is a new concept that represents all the various factors that are dynamically changing in a fight that impact the success or failure of grappling moves. Things like balance, momentum, damage, and many other factors that play a role in real MMA. Grapple advantage is like a tug of war. If one fighter is at an advantage, then the other by definition is at a disadvantage. All the advantages and disadvantages in a given moment are added together to determine who's on top at any one moment. There are different criteria for what provides a grapple advantage between a stand-up and in the clinch and on the ground, as detailed below, and we're going to get into it right about now. We're going to be talking about grapple advantage for standing takedowns. If you are holding the high block button, then you'll be at a grapple disadvantage for a standing takedown. So if you're holding R1 because you're scared that your opponent's going to punch you in the face, which is understandable because most people punch you in the face, and then your opponent goes for a takedown, that takedown will be initiated much quicker than if you was not holding block. So that might be something to consider if you're getting loads of if you're getting taken down a lot and you don't want to be taken down anymore, then maybe stop holding the R1 button, or yeah, stop holding the R1 button. I think low blocking doesn't actually put you at a grapple disadvantage. Also, if you have been hit by a strike, you are at a grapple disadvantage for the duration of the hit stun. So if someone gives you an uppercut and you can't move for a couple seconds, if they go for a takedown, then they will have the grapple advantage and it will be quicker for them to initiate that. Also, if you have successfully evaded a strike due to head movement, footwork, or parry, you are at grapple advantage for the duration of the counter window. So if you parry a strike or you move out the way of it and you go for a takedown, it will work much better. If you're mid-strike, you're going to be at a grapple disadvantage. So if you're throwing a strike and your opponent goes for a takedown, you'll probably get taken down, which is the worst time to get taken down, and it's probably the best time to shoot for a takedown. If you see your opponent going for some sort of head strike, you might be able to get in there and go for the takedown, but sometimes you'll get punched in the head, so it's really risky. And if you're in the middle of a health event, so if you're rocked or if you're wobbled or stunned, you're going to be at a grapple disadvantage, so it's going to be much easier to take you down. And the difference in leg damage between the two fighters will contribute to grapple advantage. The one with the lower leg health will be at a grapple disadvantage. So I was really pondering whether leg kicks were useful at all, because I hadn't seen loads of leg TKOs and stuff of that sort. But apparently, if you have low leg health, like if you're really working on your opponent's legs and they're hurt, then when you get on the ground or try to go for a takedown or something, they'll be at a grapple disadvantage because their legs are hurt. So that is really something to take into consideration. If you're going for loads of takedowns and it's not working out, consider hurting your opponent's legs so that it's much easier for you to get them on the ground where you want them. Also, if you're leaning away from your opponent, then you're at a grapple disadvantage. If you're ducking down, however, you'll be at a grapple advantage. If you have your back up against the cage, you'll be at a grapple disadvantage. You should never, ever, 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 ever have your back up against the cage. It is a terrible position to be in. You should always try to get out of that. If you do have your back up against the cage, I would suggest you flick the left analog stick down or up, and it will do like a quick motion. It will use a little bit of stamina, but it will really move away from the cage and it will help you out. Now they're talking about the grapple advantage on the ground and in the clinch. When you're throwing a strike on the ground or in the clinch, you are exposing yourself to a grapple disadvantage. So if you're in the middle of throwing a strike and your opponent goes for a transition, he'll probably get the transition. For a short window after landing an unblocked strike on the ground or in the clinch, you are at a grapple advantage. So if you actually hit someone and they get hit, then you'll be able to transition much easier than if you had not done that. Following a successfully blocked strike, the fighter who blocked the strike earns a grapple advantage, which is what I conveyed in my backside mount and full mount, how to survive the backside mount and how to survive the full mount videos. Basically what I said, especially in the full mount, backside mount has changed since the patch. But in the full mount, if someone gets you in a full mount and they posture up, the best thing for you to do is to block and then transition. As you can see Demetrius Johnson doing there, he just blocked and then transitioned. So that is definitely a great way to gain grapple advantage and get out of a terrible position. If a strike is evaded on the ground due to an arm trap, bridge or other grappling technique, I have no clue what a bridge is, to be honest. The defensive fighter will be at a grapple advantage. Following a successful denial, I think that means transition denial. The fighter who will transition denial will be blocking the transition, if you didn't know. The fighter who performed the denial is at a grapple advantage. So if you block a transition, it's good to go for a transition after that. So if you're trying to go for a transition and your opponent keeps on blocking it or whatever, what I generally do is I stay on top and then I'll wait for them to go to a transition, or I'll posture up and start punching them. But I'll wait for them to go for a transition, then I'll block their one and then go for my transition, and it usually lands because I have the grapple advantage. So how much grapple advantage you get off a successful denial depends on how difficult the move was to perform. A difficult move like a sweep will give your opponent much more grapple advantage off a denial than denying a much more conservative move like a pass from guard to half guard or an escape back to half guard from side control. So basically, if you're on the bottom and you go for an advanced sweep or something, so you're holding down L1 and you're going for a transition and your opponent blocks that, then you're going to be at a way more of a grapple disadvantage than if you just went for a normal transition. So keep that in mind. It really makes a difference, trust me, when you're playing skilled people who know what they're doing on the ground. Wow, it looks like Demetrius Johnson is going to get handled right about now. Alright, certain moves on the ground, when completed, give a temporary grapple advantage in one particular direction as dictated by the momentum of the move that was completed. For example, if the bottom fighter successfully sweeps the top fighter from guard to mount using a scissor sweep, the fighter who just got swept can use that momentum to sweep their opponent back to guard if timed correctly. There are too many moves with the momentum advantage in the game to list here, but experiment with the game and you're sure to find them. Basically, when your opponent goes for a very advanced transition, usually you'll see some sort of transition pop up on the screen and it will be kind of grayed out. If you try to go for this, sometimes it will work, usually it doesn't work for me, but it will get you into an advantageous position and it uses the momentum that they're trying to use in order to transition. So basically you're just moving with them into a certain position. It usually comes up when people try to get the back. Is it the back? Yeah, back position. When people are trying to get your back basically so they can go for the rear naked choke or something like that, it usually pops up saying side control left or right or something of that nature. And I've tried to go for it numerous amount of times and it usually doesn't work out. So I don't know, like that's just something for you guys to try out. There's no harm in going for it, to be honest. I always go for it because it doesn't have any stamina disadvantages or anything like that. But let's get on to the next section, which is move difficulty. He basically says, I touched on move difficulty briefly before as being one of the factors that contribute to the size of the denial window and how long it takes for your grappling meter to fill up. There's a lot that goes into defining a move's difficulty, and it warrants an explanation. First of all, he starts with transitions and takedowns, or the clinch and ground. Oh yeah, based in the clinch and ground. Okay, the difficulty of a transition or takedown in a clinch and ground is calculated based on how big of an improvement in position that move will give you. So this is just basic logic. We have a number that defines how good a position is, and the delta between the value of your current position and where you are trying to go determines the move difficulty. So half guard is more valuable than guard, and side control is more valuable than half guard. A pass from guard to half guard will be a small improvement in position and will be a low difficulty move. A sweep from bottom out to top guard will be a big improvement in position and will be a high difficulty move. A takedown from stand up to guard would be easier than a takedown from stand up to side control. There's also a section on submissions. Every position in the clinch and on the ground has a number that defines how easy or hard a submission should be from that position. That number, also with the number of stages in the submission, determine the submission difficulty. So a submission from bottom full guard will be easier than a submission from bottom full mount, and a submission from postured up mount will be harder than a submission from postured down mount. There's also get ups and breaks. Every position in the clinch and on the ground has a number that defines how much control that position has for the dominant fighter. That control value determines how hard a break or get up is to perform from that position. So a get up from sub guard would be easier than a get up from sub mount. A get up from sub guard postured up will be easier than a get up from sub guard postured down. Wow, I didn't actually know that. I never go for the get up when they're postured up, because I think that's really dumb, because they can punch you in the face. But here you go, we learned something new. A break from single collar will be easier than a break from double under. That makes sense. Overcoming move difficulty is the next section. Some moves may seem impossible at first glance. The denial window for a sweep from guard to mount might be so long that it appears impossible to ever pull off. Difficulty can be overcome by gaining a combination of grapple advantage or stamina advantage. Stamina advantage is definitely something that you guys should be aware of. Easy moves that are viable right from the get-go are only slightly affected by increased grapple and stamina advantage. Difficult moves are affected a lot by increased grapple and stamina advantage. Fighter ratings will affect the base difficulty of a move. So a high level grappler may have a sweep that on its face appears to not be viable, but it will require much less of a grapple or stamina advantage for that move to become viable than for a mid-level grappler who has the same move. Okay. Well, that was a mouthful. Basically, it's saying fighters that have good ground game will be able to perform a very advanced move much easier than a fighter with mediocre ground game. So it's not really rocket science here. Independent grappling control, that's something that you guys already know about, so I don't have to go into that. Defensive grappling, I already have taught you guys how to reverse transitions and all that sort of stuff. Ground and clinch striking, yeah, you already know how to do that. Let's see, when two fighters attempt to transition at the same time, the most likely outcome is that one fighter will get to complete the... Oh yes, this is really interesting, because I think a lot of people don't know about this, because I don't see a lot of people blocking these sorts of transitions. Basically, there are something called in the game called persistent transitions. I'm going to go into explaining it with what they say, and then I'm going to explain it in my own words. When two fighters attempt to transition at the same time, well, I already said that, but some moves are different. These moves will continue to execute even after the opponent completes the move he's attempted. For example, if the dominant in full guard is trying to pass the half guard and the sub fighter has hipped out and is trying to get out, the sub fighter will remain hipped out even If the dominant fighter passes, he'll remain hipped out and his grapple meter will continue to fill. Once it fills up, he'll complete the get up from half guard that he started from full guard. There are many moves with this property and it's important to be aware of them. If you're about to fall victim to one, it's important to know that the denial window opens up on any persistent transition immediately after the first transition completes. So in the example above, the dominant who passed to, oh geez, he knocked him out, my god. The dominant who passes to half guard should immediately deny the get up attempt once he gets to half guard. This will put him at an immediate grapple advantage. If he fails to do so, the sub will, what's that word? I don't even know what sub is standing for, you know, I forgot. The sub will complete their get up before the submissive guy, yeah, will complete their get up before he completes a transition of his own. That sounds a little bit like S&M, but let's forget about that. So basically, what they're saying is like certain transitions will keep going no matter what you're trying to do. So let's say you're on top, you've just taken a guy down and he's trying to get up. If you go to half guard and he's still trying to get up and you don't block his transition, he will get up. What you have to do is, as soon as you get to half guard, you have to hold R2 and block in whatever direction he's trying to get up from, and that will block it straight away and it'll give you immediate grapple advantage. So you could just go straight to mount and that will probably work out and you'll be in full mount and he'll be pissed. So yeah, this is definitely something that I wanted to discuss. I don't think there are a lot more there's not a lot more to discuss. There are transition fakes and stuff like that. So if someone's just constantly blocking your transitions, if you just simply go for a transition but don't try to complete it, they'll lose a bit of stamina and you can like go for a different transition. And I think it gives you grapple advantage if they try to go for the transition and then you go for it. If they try to block the transition and then you go for a different transition, because in my experience it has always worked out if I've done something like that. But right here they say that it puts them at a grapple advantage if they block your fake transition. So I'm not sure who to believe, but in my personal experience, if you fake a transition and your opponent tries to block it, you can then go for a different transition and you'll have grapple advantage. Because I've seen people do that to me many times as well. They'll fake go into like side control, fake go into mount, and then I'll try and block it and then they'll actually go to mount, and it's a really annoying thing. But once you realize someone's doing it, you can deal with it basically and you can adapt. But yeah, that was my video on grapple advantage. I hope it helped you guys out. Please hit that like button if you like this video. Be sure to subscribe because I'll be putting out loads more UFC 2 tips. Be sure to leave a comment. Let me know what you think of this video. Let me know what other things you want explained, what other tip videos you want me to make. And yeah, if you got any questions, just leave them in the comment section. I'll see if I can answer anything. Hopefully if it's a good question, I'll just answer it in a video and then everyone else can see it and stuff like that. And yeah, I will see you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching. Oh yeah, also if you want to watch the rest of my UFC tip videos, you can click on the playlist on the screen, and I'll see you guys in the next video.